everyone. This is Adam in Into the BAM. And essentially, if you've noticed, we haven't been publishing in a weekly basis. We've actually been changing that now to bi-weekly because we've noticed that with our crazy schedules and all the extracurricular activities that we do, we cannot keep up with the weekly schedule. So we're going to relaunch in August. But I know that there was a demand for our like recession yield curve type of inversion work. So essentially, just to review, we went through a basically start of recession to the end of the recession and when the yield curve inverted to basically when it end inverted, and then we convert that to data, and it's basically just averages. So from a statistical standpoint, we only have maybe like 6 instances of recession in the most recent history. So it's not really statistically significant, nor it is a very accurate model, but I know that there was a demand for seeing whether the data or not matches to what it is. So what we found, because we're using averages as when in terms of the delays. So one of the calculations is the early sign, which basically is when the inversion starts, when the yield curve inverted, and that means that the short-term government bond interest yield essentially is higher than the 10-year, indicating that the future for like the US specifically, or even just the future in general for us, is not really is bleak. They value short-term holdings versus long-term ones. So on average, the delays between the start of the yield curve inversion to the start of recession is around 357 days. So it started to basically inverted in around March, April, yeah, April 1st, April Fool's Day. And so our model predicted that the recession would start around 324, 2023, and then the yield curve just also inverted on July 5th. And so the range between when the recession starts is either 324, 2023 or 627, 2023. Now, we ran that average to the actual, and obviously when we average the differences is going to be zero. But it's kind of interesting to see what's off and what's accurate. So it looks like in recent history in 2001, the dot-com bubble burst, and as well as the September 11 attack, it was off by almost around 2 months, actually. It's 1.8 months. It went the predictor would be earlier, and the latest that it would be early actually would be for the '07 recession, where the model would predict it to occur around January 18th, 2007, where the recession actually started in December 3rd, 2007. And so yeah, so that's what one thing to consider. The latest is actually kind of almost tied between the recent one in 2009 and as well as I believe the Gulf War or 1990 crisis, where we have it delayed by around 8 months. The predictor value said that a recession would start in February 28th, 1991, and the actual is actually in July 2nd, 1990. And then for the 2009 recession, it was 7 months too late. The actual was January 19th, 2020, whereas the model predicted to be around August 17th. So considering that we're basically playing with averages, it's not going to be as accurate. And it's also kind of the scope of the recession because like a lot of it is very triggered by politics, which is unfortunate, or even exogenous events like wars and um, country treaties or embargoes and all that jazz. So those are a lot of things to consider. Like right now, Joe Biden's running the government, and we'll see what happened in the midterm. And whoever is the controlling party, then they have a responsibility to basically either um, start it earlier or start it later. It all depends. If I think at this rate, kind of everyone agrees that it is inevitable. Now the money is really when does it start? So when it comes to the days of the recession, we have a lot of variance, mostly because our yield to inversion kind of utilizes the difference between the day that it's inverted to the actual rate of time of recession. And what throws us off by a lot is the period of the 1970s to 80s, where like especially in 79 to 1980, where the recession to inversion was actually below one. That means that the days of the recession was less than the actual time that the yield curve inverted. And around that time, I feel like we had like a bond trading thing where the bond market was very, very lucrative to against um, equities and all that jazz. But that's something that worth considering. So I try not to cherry pick data and just present it what it is. And we use the wonderful data set provided by the St. Louis Fed. So that website is fred.stlouisfed.org. The series is T10Y2Y. So basically, we're using the 10-year against the 2 years. So that's something that's worth considering because the predictor days of recession were all off. Because from looking at this, essentially it's whatever that's elongated. The most accurate predictor is actually in 2019, sorry. That one was the predictor says we're only 32 days of recession, but in reality, we were in 73 days. So it was off by 41 days. So it was more optimistic than in reality. And that leg is probably due from, politics and all that jazz. You guys have your own thoughts about that. Whereas I would say, the most negative viewpoint is probably around the 1979 to 1980, where the predictor believes that we will be in 2,496 days, and the actual days is 182. So it was 6 months of actual recession, and that was a big difference. The average difference is probably between it looks like it looks like it's more how do you say more negative than it is positive because it looks like it predicted way outside its boundaries. So like for example, like in 2001, they said the predictor in recession was 1,324 days, but in reality, it was around 245. So, like around that time, it was George W. Bush and how he handled the economy. And a lot of our recession indicator is kind of based on GDP. So, if there's like a significant amount of government spending, and as well as consumer, consumption and all that jazz, and we know we close the gap between our export imports. In reality, like that recession indicator is really like I don't want to say playable, right? So that's something worth considering. Because in real life, we do notice that like whatever that's all these news media and government agencies publish, it's not necessarily true for everyone else. So that's something that's also worth considering. As in like the 2008 financial crisis might be very gruesome to those who had to declare bankruptcy, and that's like 11 years. So for them, they're still living it, right? So hopefully they come out on top winning, but that's something also worth considering as well too. I guess just uh stay tuned. Majority of this big stuff doesn't necessarily mean a direct impact to you, but it also means that other stuff may impact someone else, and then that also could impact you. So just keep that in mind. All of this is more educational and analytics, and anyone can do it. And just take some time and interest and just loving to learn. So stay tuned for our videos. We'll publish in August 1st. All right. This is Adam from BAM. Into the BAM. I'll see you guys later.